A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John, chapter 6, verses 1 to 15. The passage is taken from the Message version of the Bible. After this, Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee, some call it Tiberias. A huge crowd followed him, attracted by the miracles they had seen him do among the sick. When he got to the other side, he climbed a hill and sat down, surrounded by his disciples. It was nearly time for the feast of Passover, kept annually by the Jews. When Jesus looked out and saw that a large crowd had arrived, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread to feed these people?" He said this to stretch Philip's faith. He already knew what he was going to do. Philip answered, 200 silver pieces wouldn't be enough to buy bread for each person to get a piece. One of the disciples, it was Andrew, brother to Simon Peter, said, "There's a little boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But that's a drop in the bucket for a crowd like this." Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." There was a nice carpet of green grass in this place. They sat down, about 5,000 of them. Then Jesus took the bread, having given thanks, gave it to those who were seated. He did the same with the fish. All ate as much as they wanted. When the people had eaten their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather the leftovers, so nothing is wasted." They went to work and filled 12 large baskets with leftovers from the 5 barley loaves. The people realized that God was at work among them in what Jesus had just done. They said, "This is the prophet for sure, God's prophet right here in Galilee." Jesus saw that in their enthusiasm, they were about to grab him and make him king. So he slipped off and went back up the mountain to be by himself. The Gospel of the Lord.
Good morning. Let's listen to a short reflection according to St. John chapter 6 verses 1 to 15. A call to perform miracles. Do not cast me off in my old age. This sincere plea, taken from Psalm 71, is the theme of the Fourth World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly, which is celebrated today, on July 28th. In his message for Grandparents' Day this year, Pope Francis cited the story of Naomi from the Book of Ruth. Naomi, who had grown old, urged her 2 daughters-in-law to leave her and return to their native towns and homes. One of her daughters does as the mother suggests. The other, Ruth, does not leave Naomi's side and, to her surprise, tells her, "Do not press me to leave you," Ruth 1 verse 16. Pope Francis writes that Ruth is not afraid to challenge customs and inbred patterns of thought. The Pope's message concludes with an appeal, in place of the self-centered attitude that leads to loneliness and abandonment, let us instead show the open heart and the joyful face of men and women who have the courage to say, "I will not abandon you." Humanity has long been concerned about physical hunger and food shortages. The Gospel today shares the story of Jesus feeding 5,000 men, possibly along with their families, using 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish that a young boy gave. It's unlikely that this miracle can be interpreted literally as a historical. Could there be 5,000 men and their families journeying up a mountain to hear a preacher? It raises doubts about the logistical feasibility of such an event and suggests that the intention of the biblical account was to offer a teaching using familiar images rather than to provide a historical record. The evangelist begins his narration with a reference to the Passover, the event of Moses leading the multitude out of Egypt, and in the desert, they were fed with manna. Like Moses, Jesus now provides the multitude with bread in the desert. The boy who shares his bread made the miracle possible, and he saved over 5,000 people from hunger. In sharing bread, we begin to care for the well-being of our brothers and sisters. Bread still multiplies, and we have a mission to feed the hungry. Do we share this desire to initiate the miracle and share the mission to end the hunger of those around us?